Marissa Kulig Crow. Absolute pleasure talking to Marissa, LPGA National Teacher of the Year 21. 2019, 2020 Northeast Tech section Teacher of the Year. Uh, Terrific golfer. She's from my home state of Connecticut. She's at Lyman Orchards. She's the head teaching pro there. She primarily teaches, about 95% of her students are women. Really enjoyed the conversation. I've known her from afar for a while. What she's done with the program there is absolutely incredible. Maybe the best in the country, certainly by the numbers. Absolutely, what she's done there is absolutely incredible. I talk about what I loved. I love to talk about golf. I'm an avid golfer. Everybody needs help in it. Common misconceptions, those that have, like a athletic background that try to move into golf. We think it's going to be easy. It's not. You're constantly learning. We talk about breathing and yoga. She actually teaches yoga in the last 3 or 4 years to a lot of her students to help them breathe. And I notice myself breathing differently even as I say this. But Marissa is really cool. I ask what do you look for in an instructor? The personalities have to mesh. You have to be comfortable with them. You have to uh, you know want to get better at golf. All too often we see golfers go into golf and start and go at it, go at it, go at it, and then get some instruction. Get instruction first, get get some foundation, get some basics down. But she is absolutely really, really delightful, really great teacher, superhuman individual. Love her to death. Her website, by the way, Marissa Golf Movement com. I forget to ask her at the end, but I'll put it all in the show notes. Instagram, same thing, Marissa Golf Movement. But you're really going to enjoy this conversation with Marissa Kulig Crow. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic. I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business? And it lasted over 25 years. Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Marissa Kulig Crow, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you. How is the state of golf right now, in your opinion?
That's a deep question.
Right there.
Cut right to the chase. I think we're doing great. Especially since COVID. I mean, golf is like number one. The pandemic sparked the industry, and it's insane. We're so busy. There's not enough product. Everything's back ordered. There's not enough instructors. It's all good. It's great. Lots of new golfers. We're growing the game. Yeah.
Definitely, more people are playing golf than ever. The people watching it are way down, but still, the people playing it, my goodness, like you said, all the clubs are booked up. There's waiting lines now and on private courses. I see people that I've never seen before. I mean, it's amazing that how all through the pandemic I played because it was outdoor and it was fine and just people came on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I it was beneficial for
Mm-hmm.
everyone.
Absolutely.
It's a great
It is. It took a pandemic to get more people to play and take lessons and check it out.
You're outside, you're getting all that vitamin E from the sun, I mean, I like to walk, a lot of people take cars, but at least you're outside, you're walking, uh, and you're essentially a teacher now. You're a great teacher. I mean, your awards, my goodness. But and you're there at Lyman Orchards in Middlefield, Connecticut, and like you said, we're low on instructors as well. I mean, how can you tell when you've got a good instructor?
um, it's all about personality, number one. I mean, I think there are a lot of great instructors that know their craft. They're very technical, tech savvy, maybe. But if they're not a people person, I mean that's my number one. That if you need to connect with the person, I think that's why I'm successful, because I'm a people person. I just love to have fun. I like to laugh, and yeah, you need to be able to connect, and I think personality is number one.
I think often and you do such a great job. You, I was watching some of your videos on YouTube, and you're so patient, and you're just like and you're doing the exercises, and you've got you're showing how uneven lie, and you're going through everything, and you've got that smile, and you're patient, and everybody that I know that have taken lessons from you always praise you, and and of course, like I mentioned, your awards, you're very humble, but 2021 LPGA National Teacher of the Year, 19 and 20, Northeast Section, Teacher of the Year. It's just absolutely incredible. When, so the common mistake I see is that people just go out and start playing, and then they develop all these bad habits, and then they try to get instruction, and they take one lesson, and they don't think it's good enough, and there's all this frustration that occurs. Let's talk about that. Wrong path.
Yes, yes, and I mean golf is hard, right? It's not like any other sport. So I think people that have played other sports, they come thinking, "Oh, I got this," and it's very humbling. But yeah, it's just you got to be realistic. But I mean, all the students that I teach, I mean, number one is just making them feel comfortable, giving them the confidence that it's a process. It's step by step. You're not going to get it like that. I mean, I'm still trying to master it. I don't think you ever master this sport, but we're all just looking for consistency, and if we can hit some good shots, we're happy.
Oftentimes I see some, not often, but there are times where instructors, you talk about making that personal connection, they're starting to use language that's very hard for the student to understand because there's so many terms for what we do. I'll just give one example. My instructor here, I was not kind of hitting down on the ball, and so I used the word cover. I said, I've got to cover it more. And she said, "Oh, I've heard that term before, but not a lot of people are comfortable with that." So let's just talk about the actual terms. I just see even the videos where you watch on TikTok or YouTube. Sometimes they're using the vernacular. It's just very confusing to the kind of layman.
Yeah, and YouTube is great. I mean, but not so great. Students coming up to me, "Well, I learned this on YouTube." I'm like, "Oh,"
Hmm.
because people, they'll misinterpret it so many times, and maybe not the tips that they're looking at may not even apply to them. But I think that's another reason why I'm successful with my new golfers, is because I really keep it super duper simple. I use silly acronyms. I use phrases. So it helps them retain the information, and it's easy to understand. Do you want to hear one?
I do. I wrote it down. I want to hear a silly acronym. Yes, please.
I have a couple. I shouldn't be telling you because then I'm kind of telling my secrets. But for teaching the full swing, I say, all right, 3 little words that outline their checkpoints for the full swing. They are toe, tee, toe. And I'll have them repeat toe, tee, toe. And I said it rhymes with mojito. Coquito, Dorito, Tostito, Cranberry and Tito's. Of course, I get lots of laughs. But then I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And I tell them the first toe is the club face. What's the toe of the club head? And where that should be going in the backswing. It should be facing up towards the sky. And then they should pop the tee out to help them hit down. And then the last toe is their back toe to pivot. So it's like, okay, toe, tee, toe. Keep it super simple. That's their full swing right there in a nutshell.
So is this with a driver or with an iron?
It could be with both. But when I teach the full swing, I start with an iron. It's easier to see it with the iron. You know, the toe is up, popping the tee, right, and then they're following through on their toe. They're back.
Pop the tee. So as if there's a tee, like on a par 3, you're using a tee and you're extracting the tee from the ground?
Because most oftentimes people miss the ball, top the ball, or they'll grip it tight. And I'm like, if I have them focus on popping the tee out of the ground, then they make contact. I said, if you pop the tee, the ball will go up. Yeah.
I see that with the high handicappers too. They try to lift.
Try to help it. Yeah.
Yeah. They try to help it up. They'll have a wedge and they have to hit it high to get it over something. And you can see them kind of lift up. And of course, the irony is the more you hit down on it, the higher it goes.
I know. I like to hit it up. You got to hit down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But instead I see the opposite.
Yeah. You got to get down to get up.
Sounds like a song.
Yes, it does. Let's all get down to get up. Yeah. And I'm guilty of that too occasionally. I'll just, I'll have a tree, I'll put myself in a bad position and I'll have to get over a tree. And I said, okay, I've got a wedge here. And okay, Joe, don't help it up. Just hit down.
Stay down.
And stay down and commit. There's another problem that I have is sometimes I don't commit to it. I say, okay, I think I got this shot. And then I loosen my grip and I open the face and you've got to stay focused.
No doubt. Don't. Yeah. It's true.
Toe, tee, toe.
You got it.
Cool. One of my friends, Rob Labritz, who's on the Champions Tour, he's from Connecticut. He's from Southington. He gave me the 30-second rule where he's got 30 seconds from the time the caddy hands him the club. He's got 30 seconds to line up, take the shot, and start walking. Anything between there, he could do whatever he wants. Says hi to the crowd, tells jokes, stays focused. But for those 30 seconds, he's focused. He calls it the 30 seconds.
I like it.
Pretty good, right?
It is good.
Because there's a lot of kind of walking around in golf, and there's a lot of stuff that you don't, you have no control of. After you hit that ball, it's done. There's nothing you could do.
Right.
I try to focus on that. And one of your videos, it talked about pre-shot routine. Do you teach that to your students?
I do. Yeah. And as a yoga for golfers instructor, I talk a lot about breathing, and that should be part of your pre-shot routine. Because, how you were saying the 30-second rule, trying to keep focus. When you focus on your breath, you're not thinking about anything else. And it really, I do it. I started teaching this 3 years now, I think. And I started incorporating, not that I play often, I play 3-4 times a year, but just incorporating that, I take 2 deep breaths from the time I put my hands on the club to the time I finish. And actually, no, I take that back. 2 breaths from the time I place my hands on the club till I'm about to hit the ball.
Now, breath meaning a full inhale, exhale?
Full inhale, So I'm taking my grip, taking a big inhale. I'm looking at my target behind the ball down the line, and I'm stepping into it, visualizing where I want to land the ball. Place the club down. I'm exhaling, take my stance, get my balance, take another inhale as I'm kind of settling down, and then a long exhale. Once all that breath has left my lungs, that's when I start my swing. I don't think about my breath anymore after that. But with those two breaths, I'm zoning in. I'm releasing all the tension from my shoulders, my hands. I'm focusing on my target. It works. And I mean, it's coming out more now that a lot of the PGA Tour players, the LPGA Tour, they all have some type of breathing technique. It really works. I mean, because everyone thinks so much when they're standing over that ball, and then they tense up. So if you take that breath, and I've been telling a lot of my new golfers, just take one breath. It doesn't have to be obnoxious. Just you could see their shoulders drop, their hands relax, and then they go.
And in through the nose, out through the mouth.
Yes.
You're never taking in through the mouth. That's a mouth breather. That's what we learn in yoga. You're a yoga instructor. We learn in through the nose, out through the mouth.
Yeah, out through the mouth a little bit, just to relax the jaw, the neck. Want to try it? Are you going to try it?
Doing it as you speak. I love it. Let's do it.
You know, you're already.
Feels so good.
And I mean, of course, women are more apt to try it than men, but
why?
I don't, because yoga has a bad stigma, I think. So when I say yoga for golfers, I'm like, it's just stretching. We're stretching, it's golf specific, your joints, your muscles. But I had this one student, a male golfer. He's like maybe a 7 or 8 handicap. And just that little tip alone, and he really liked it for his short game, like chipping and putting. It really just brought him in, and he stroked the ball so much better. It helped with his tempo. And he broke 80 like 6 or 7 times this year, and he was so ecstatic. I'm like, yeah. It's great.
I remember it is, and it's so simple,
right.
And it's free. And I remember one particular incident playing with a buddy, and we were playing in a match, and he was my partner, and it was a par 5, and he was taking his, second shot, and it was important because they had put some pressure on us, and he lined up, and Marissa, he was gripping that club so you could see the veins in his forearms, and at one point I could tell he stopped breathing, and he was so I said, "Eric, stop." And he looked up at me like scared. I said, "Just take a step back and breathe a little bit, will you? Let's just breathe." He was like putting so much pressure on him, and he was gripping way too hard. And this is what you mentioned before. These are former athletes that play contact sports, that play team sports. They think that they can kind of physical into it. They think that they can, kind of make up for a bad shot by kind of pressing a little bit more physically, and that's not the case. Perhaps it's just the opposite.
It is the opposite. That's why some people drink. No. No, I mean, yeah, just something simple like that. The ladies love it.
So you take as soon as so you know what club you're going to use. So say it's a 7-iron. You grab the 7-iron, you grip, and you start the breathing routine.
Correct. I'm standing behind the ball with my 7-iron in my hand. So I take
and you're thinking a shot shape?
For me, I'm picking a spot in the fairway.
Where it's going to land or where it's
going to land.
Regardless of how it gets there. So that's where it's going to get there. I say you're behind it, you're holding the iron up, and you start your breathing in and out. You see where it's going to land, then you step up to the side of it and execute.
Correct.
That sounds way too easy, Marissa. That sounds great. Sounds great. One of your videos was so cool. You were like, you were inside, and you said, usually when people practice swing, it's so much more fluid because that pesky little ball's not in the way. And and plus if you're inside, you're not thinking about, your
Results.
your your
Yeah, the
your
outcome.
results, just looking at the swing. Yeah. Yeah, and it's so true. I see, and I'm guilty of it myself, but I see people take two or three practice cuts and they're nice and fluid, a nice finish to the ear, taking it back, and then they get up there and it's like chopping at some grass, like it's all of a sudden it's yeah. Let's talk more about yoga in this, because I used to do a lot of yoga and I don't do it anymore, but I want to revisit. I've taken a little bit of jujitsu. We're needs discipline and breathing and what you're doing. So were you always been into yoga?
No, I just, so maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I set some personal goals for myself to um, get certified in different areas, and I wanted to include a fitness segment, or like I wanted to test that field and incorporate it into my teaching. Like, so TPI was on my radar. And then I don't know, I was just doing a little research, and Catherine Roberts, who's based in Arizona, she popped up, and I was reading her program. I mean, she's amazing. She not just golf, but she trains baseball players, just all about movement. And I liked her style because I felt like it would complement my teaching, the way I teach, just really
Hmm.
simple, um, effective. It's so when I read about that, that's when I started yoga. I mean, I was getting certified, but I was doing it myself, and I'm like, the benefits are like everyone should do it. It just made sense. Being relaxed, because that's what I think I always stressed, always when I've been teaching over the years, is you got to be relaxed. Tension cripples the swing, and how do we get relaxed? And I think that stretching and the breathing, it works, goes hand in hand.
You mentioned an acronym TPI. I'm not familiar.
Titleist Performance Institute. They have a program where lots of training, like they'll assess you, just to see physically where you may have imbalances or where you're struggling. Maybe you're not getting a full range of motion, and then they prescribe different stretches and drills, almost similar but not quite.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And do you actually conduct yoga lessons there at Lyman Orchards?
I do. Now that's the best thing. I'm teaching the class on the golf course. You're familiar with Lyman Orchards?
Very much. I'm in
Oh,
Wallingford.
okay. The 11th tee on the player.
11th tee on the player. Okay. 10. Yes. 10, 11. Yes. I know where that is.
Highest point on the course, apple orchards to the
Yes.
left.
Yes. Beautiful, beautiful site. Yeah.
We're on
Beautiful
the
condition
back
there.
tee box. Yoga mats all spread out. Saturday mornings. I mean, it's gorgeous. Golfers driving by, they're like, "What's going on over here?" But I mean, it's you're outside. You're hearing the birds and the breeze, and it's just beautiful. Yeah.
And there's no danger of getting hit by
No, because
balls
we're
there. I
behind
mean,
the golfers.
you're behind it. Yeah. And that is a beautiful area right there.
Yeah.
That wow.
That really
It's
that's a um I mean, that really ropes the students in. They're like, wow. I mean, the views are breathtaking. You're not in a yoga studio or like a gym. I mean, you're
mm.
outdoors. Yeah. Doesn't get better than that.
So they're bringing mats and they're not bringing irons.
Yeah, they'll bring a golf club.
Ah.
So we hop on the golf carts and
Very
we drive up to the 11th tee, and people, the starters always tease me. They're like, "Where are you going? Can I join?" And I'm like, "Yeah, come on over." But yeah, we have the yoga mats, and then the golf club will do some drills. We'll do some practice swings. We'll use it as a crutch, for balance. And
mm.
I think the best thing about yoga for golfers is at the beginning of class, we do a baseline assessment test. So you can see the results at the end of class, like how much
Hmm.
range of motion you've increased, with your shoulders and your hips. And people are blown away with, 45 minutes later, they're like, holy cow, I can rotate so much more. So that obviously translates into golf swing. I'll have ladies go across the street and start hitting some balls, and they're like, I was warmed up. I was like, yeah. I mean, do you do any sort of stretching yourself?
I do, but not enough. Jujitsu is kind of I just started doing it, Marissa, and I haven't found my comfort zone in it. I love the idea that it makes me uncomfortable, and those that I know say it's lowered their handicap.
Hmm.
So I mean, just because of the discipline, but I want to get back into yoga. I kind of fell away from it. I remember feeling great rewards from it. I'm in Tampa now for the winter, and I just wrote down yoga on another sheet of paper here. I'm gonna find a place to do that. But you mentioned about seeing benefits. We had a coach in high school. He was a big man. Let's just say that he was very large. He was overweight, and he would get a ladder and go put it under the hoop, and he would go step up and he would fit his body in the hoop. He said, "Look how big the basketball hoop is. I can fit in it." And for that whole practice, people were barely missing. Like, they just in their the hoop didn't
Oh,
get bigger, but it's just like it just felt bigger for them because wow, a coach, I don't want to say who,
yeah,
but people could
yeah.
figure out based on age. Wow, I didn't realize it was that big, and it just helped. And so I wonder, like, similar with this baseline, creating a baseline like that, and when people see that they can get better just within 45 minutes, that's very rewarding.
Oh, totally. Totally. I mean, and when I'm working with a student and we're doing some drills and I'm, just simple shoulder drills, I'm like, oh boy, like I know right away that how limited they are. And they're like, yeah, and
Mm.
really tight, or my low back. And after teaching yoga for these few years now, I firmly believe that a lot of students' flaws are due to their physical limitations.
Ability.
Yeah. And I mean, just stretching alone, I mean, breathing too. That just kind of opens everything up here in your chest and your back. Yeah, I wish I could teach more because I need
Mm.
it. Personally,
Mm.
for me, I have a 6-year-old son, and when I started teaching, he was a little guy, and I'm picking him up a lot, and my low back is just was crying. And when I started doing yoga, that low back pain went away. It was like amazing. And it's not just stretching. I mean, you're strengthening like your lower body.
Right.
You're working your core. There we work some Pilates into it as well.
So they get a little sweat involved.
Yeah, well, that's the
You know.
thing. A lot of my students, like at the end of class, I didn't feel like I was really working out, but boy, they were sore afterwards. I'm like, that's the best type of workout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to manage expectations with it. I was doing hot yoga for a
How was
while. It
that?
was, 100. I mean, it was like 105, 110 degrees in there. And so you were just, dripping sweat. You needed a towel. And I used to do it a few years ago. And then you definitely feel,
More
you feel a lot
loose,
better
maybe?
afterwards,
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel loose and because you have some of these, players like, Rory McIlroy, who's, not that tall, he's pretty slight and he can just hit it so far. You have uh what's her name who just won Corda.
Oh,
I mean, she's a very, very slight,
yes.
you know,
Yes.
woman, but just the flexibility is incredible, and I think all too often we look at kind of muscle because the movement for a while with Tiger Woods and everything was like a lot of these guys were going into, doing
Yeah.
weights, and certainly nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that. Just you have to be flexible as
Right.
well.
Right. Yeah. I have a lot of students, like my younger students, they're doing CrossFit, and they're doing all like the Peloton. I'm like, that's all great, but you're working, especially the Peloton, biking and all that. You're only working your in one plane of motion. If you're a runner or walker, your hips are, and we all sit so much. I'm like, no. In golf, we need to be able to internally and externally rotate those hips to really generate a lot of power. And I use Rory, I use Tiger because, boy, when you see those pictures, those still frames,
Yes.
they're winding up, and then their hips, they separate.
Mm.
Their
Mm.
shoulders and their hips, they're like, it's amazing. Their hips are going, their shoulders are back here, but a lot of people can't separate their hips because they're so tight, or they got weak glutes, and yeah.
How do you stop the slide, Marissa? How do you stop the slide?
You gotta work on those hips.
Uh,
When we
uh,
tend to sway, our hips are tight. They can't rotate. There's some great stretches.
mm.
Did you see my latest one, the window washers?
No, I didn't see the window washers. Explain.
I'm thinking about teaching a class or two down in Connecticut through the winter in Durham. You'll have to pop in.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very
Because
cool.
I do teach it in the winter via Zoom, which is great, but
Mm.
a lot of students like in person, so I can spot check them, and in
Mm.
person's more fun anyways. But yeah.
Mm. Yeah, well, my hips don't lie. They need to be looser. But so tell me about the window washer. The wheels on the bus go round and round.
Oh boy. All right. So I do this in bed before well, when I wake up in the morning, I do this before I leave the bed. Make sure that
Mm.
my husband's out of the bed first. So
Okay.
so you're laying on your back. You have your knees bent, feet together. Bring your heels super close to your glutes or your rear end as much as you can. Some people can't even do that. And then take a
Mm.
super wide step to the right with your leg and right leg, and then super wide step to the left. So
Ah.
your knees are bent, they're spread apart. Arms can just be perpendicular to your body. You're going to take a big inhale, and then as you exhale, you drop your knees to the right, and then inhale back
Hmm.
to center, and then exhale, drop your knees to the left. Low back, hips, quads, so good.
I love how you incorporate the breathing pattern
Yeah,
into the
that's important
classes.
because if you're not breathing,
Yeah.
some of my students, they don't even realize they're holding their breath. And that's just like working out.
Mm.
You're not supposed to you got to exhale to get the maximum, benefits. You get so much more out of it
Yeah.
when you're exhaling on, one direction or the other.
Hmm. When you're working with a student and it's obvious that exercise is needed, perhaps they're not in the best shape they'd like to be. I mean, it must be difficult to kind of work around that.
Yes and no.
Mm.
I mean, I would hope that they know I mean, what your limitations are. If you want more,
Right.
you got to put the work into it. Um, Otherwise, I mean, I'll help them the best I can. Modifications. Everyone has, maybe a bad hip or a bad knee, bad back.
Right.
Got to work around it.
Let's talk about kind of false expectations. So I'm just thinking here, if in that particular case, they're just out there to have a good time, and I mean, if somebody was to say, look, I want to be on the tour, and you can just tell they're miles away. I'm sure this happens, or the parents, which is a whole other issue, I'm sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
What do you do how do you deal with that?
Well, luckily, I teach 95% women.
Uh,
um, yeah, I mean, I used to teach juniors, but now the women's program at Lyman is just so large that I don't have time. So I just focus on the women, the new golfers. We have instructors that teach our all the juniors at Lyman. I hear the stories though about the parents
mm,
and how, you know, they're out there, they have the next Tiger Woods, and I don't know. I I don't envy them. With women, I guess, yeah, I'll have the occasional student that, oh, I want to shoot 70, and they're shooting 100 or whatever. I'm like, well, you're not going to get there that quickly. It all depends on them. People, I think it all boils down to, I always ask, how often are you practicing and how often are you playing? That question right there tells me a lot. And then they're like, well, once every other week. I'm like, okay, well, with anything, anything that you learn, a new hobby, you got to put the time in. And it's I have I'm finishing up my season pretty much in the next week, and it kind of not breaks my heart, but I'm like worried because all these women that are learning this fall, I hope they stick with it. I'm trying to tell them, you got to stick with it. When I was growing up, yes, this time of year I'd put my clubs in the garage and see them again in March. But now there's just so many opportunities. They can practice, they can play virtual golf. There's ranges that you can hit outdoors with the heaters. We offer indoor lessons and classes at Lyman now with 3 simulators. I'm like, keep it going, keep the momentum going, because if you don't do anything this winter, you're going to be starting all over again in the spring. And I think they understand that.
Sure. Are they former athletes, so they understand kind of the commitment to get good at a sport?
Some of them do, yeah. Yeah. And those are the ones I'm like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's the ones that, I remember at Wallingford Country Club, and I see some of the women there are just kind of the wives of golfers, and they're just kind of doing it because their husband does. I don't know for sure, but there's others that are fully committed. We have some that are just, love the forwardness of the sport, and they want it to grow. And is it different teaching women than men overall?
That's a great question. um I don't think so. I don't think so. But if I were to put, I've heard from my students that it's very different taking lessons from a woman versus a male.
Ah.
I'm not knocking the men. There's a lot of great, my colleagues are great. But it's just something about a woman that, they just feel more comfortable. They're more relatable. I can talk about the chest where guys can't. Marissa, what do I do with these? Well,
Right.
they're just like, we can be more real, I guess, with each other versus,
Mm.
different.
My instructor's a woman, and she's great. And I've taken from men, but my one I have now is a woman, and it's wonderful. The what I see sometimes with with some of the women, some of the wives, is that they're taking advice from their husband, who's like a really high handicap, and and
My disclaimer, first day in class, from this day forward, do not listen to your husbands, your spouses, your friends, your family. They all laugh, but they all know. Some of their husbands sent them there. They're like, I can't teach you. Or they're filling their heads with so much information. Keep your left arm straight.
right.
Oh, keep your head down. I'm like, no,
Oh, that's the
no,
worst.
no,
Yeah.
no. Don't listen to.
Yeah. When I hear that, I'm very fortunate. I get to play a lot. I'm currently at about a 4.6, I think,
Nice.
and I get to play with some friends. And when I travel, I play with some friends that are a little bit higher handicapped, and they're always asking me for advice. And I say, look, I just respect those teachers too much for me to give you advice. I know what I do wrong
Mm,
typically, and I can kind of work around it. But I'd be afraid to give you wrong advice, and I get slack from it. It's like, Joe, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? I said, well, the first thing is you're asking me and not an instructor. So
yeah,
I try to slide my way out of
yeah.
it. You know, you're a good golfer. Just hit the ball, man. Just hit the ball. What am I going to say? Lower your shoulder and all this. I look,
Yeah.
I tend to I hit a low ball. So then, that means I do certain things on my lineup and they don't. So how can I possibly give advice? It's a tough predicament. You try to be good about
Yeah.
it.
Well, good for you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've had enough instruction, and generally the instruction that I get is, what bad habits have you started, Joe, that I need to break? That's I don't hear that, but I know that's what they're thinking, and you
Right.
know, and so and they'll take video and they'll say, "Hey, what's this right here?" And I say, I don't know. I don't know. What is that? And so then you have to move forward. But and here's another bad thing I do, and you're not going to like this, Marissa, but when people haven't played golf and they ask me about it, I generally talk them out of it. I don't know why. I said, look, this is what's going to happen. You're going to play and you're going to love it and you're going to be upset because you missed a putt and you're not going to sleep at night and then you're going to be blaming me. So just don't do it, So I'm almost teasing them. I'm almost saying, look, if you're good enough, then you'll do it, and then you won't bother me about it. But it's just because it's such a great sport. And it's so addictive, and
Mm.
I had 6 birdies, but I made that one double bogey, and it's the only thing I'm
Isn't
thinking
that
about.
awful? It's
It
awful.
is. It really is. It really is. In the podcast, we talk a lot about discipline. So I lost a lot of weight, when I started my business back in the 90s and wasn't paying attention to myself, got a lot of weight. The doctor said to me, look, if you don't lose the weight, you're going to not see your daughter graduate. I was pre-diabetic. I was pre-hypertensive. So that's all I needed to hear. So I started doing a lot of exercising, a lot of yoga, a lot of CrossFit,
Mm.
and I lost 130 pounds. So people ask me, how did I lose it? Like there's some magic
Yeah.
way. And I just say, just discipline. I just got focused and disciplined. I had a come to Jesus moment. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Marissa.
A big role. I mean, I can relate to you. Yeah. Like you look great, by the way.
Oh,
No,
stop it.
you look good.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna get all red and bashful. Discipline.
Discipline. Trying to change the subject. Discipline. Well, I don't think I'd be here today if I wasn't disciplined.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to
Mm.
go way back and give my parents the credit. My goodness. I'm the oldest of four, and me being the oldest girl, they were pretty hard on me. But they instilled they instilled a great work ethic. Um, and that just carried out through my entire life. I mean, I, I have a great work ethic. I take pride in what I do. I'm responsible, and I think it's just helped me be successful. I care. I care about what I do, and I care about people. When it comes to golf, I mean, I've been in the golf business for, I can't believe I say this, 28 years. I'm only 29.
Wow.
I'm
So you
only
started when you were
29,
5.
so I don't know what that means.
Oh,
But no, so uh, being in the business that long, I've done it all. And I'm proud to say that because then I really found my true calling, which was teaching. The managing, that was all great. And being a greenskeeper, cutting grass, learning about, all that. But teaching in all my jobs, I only did a little bit of it. And that's what really made me happy. I mean, I got such a high from teaching. I mean, it's so rewarding seeing my students they have this aha moment and they're just so excited. So I was lucky when I found this job 10 years ago at Lyman that was just full-time teaching. And I wasn't busy my first couple of years, but
mm.
I built it up over time, and it was easy. I mean, I'm fortunate that the facility itself is just so large that I can grow and offer so many different types of programs. Um, but I mean, the facility, and I care so much. And everyone says, I'm just so passionate, and it's infectious. So,
You tell a great story about how your father was a golfer and you
yes.
said to him, "I want to play golf," and he got excited.
Oh, he wasn't going to teach
And
me.
right.
And I've heard this story from other women about my age, and oh
Mm,
yeah, I had brothers. They played with him, and they're like, no, you're gonna go whatever. And because I kind of grew up running around on the golf course with my grandfather and father, I loved what I saw. I'm like, I want to try that. So
mm.
then, yeah, he took me under his wing, taught me everything he knew, and got me lessons once he couldn't teach me anymore. But yeah, I competed junior golf and high school golf, college golf. But growing up, I didn't really have a lot of girls to play with, which it was what it, I mean, it is what it is.
Mm,
But
mm.
again, maybe that made me a better player too because I had to work harder and um, I focused on my short game versus my long game because I couldn't hit it far as the guys. I have a really good short game.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, that's that's my story.
And you tell another story how you would have to play in male tournaments, and you had to travel in a van, and your mother wouldn't let you go, so she drove along with you, and just the life of a female
Oh,
golfer.
I was so embarrassed. No, it was all good. She loved the traveling. Oh my goodness. I took her everywhere. She absolutely loved it. But that's funny. Yeah.
So as a child, during this, when you're asking to play golf and you're being been around it for so long, did I wonder? And you have to be like in a male dominated sport. I mean, did you consider yourself? I'm a pretty disciplined person to do this. Did it ever come up in your mind
That what? What?
that you're a disciplined person to do this, to be in an environment that's not really female friendly? That's it
Yeah.
never came up. You just did it.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I just did it. I loved it. And
Hmm.
yeah. That's so bizarre. I know like it'll come up now in conversations and I went to the this Connecticut Women's Hall of Fame dinner last night and they were celebrating Title IX 50th anniversary and that really like made me think. I mean, it was just amazing to see the women that they inducted. Jen Rosati. Oh my gosh, I always loved
Ah,
her. Susie Whaley, of course. Um, eh, Women that just, and I'm like, I get, it made me think 30 years ago is when I was like, you know what? It's a boys' high school team. They don't have a girls' team. And my parents were like, you try out. You got to work hard
right.
because they weren't going to give me any easy way out. They weren't going to, be lenient. Like, oh, you can play the red tees. I had to play from where they played. And I made it. And
Mm.
yeah, just keep trudging along, keep plugging along. I had to do that in college as well. And um, yeah, it's just don't realize it's harder. It's harder for women to, you know, get far. And get,
Yeah. I have daughters, and I played soccer all my life. I only started playing golf about 20 years ago, but I would send them to to the kind of the week classes there, for golf, and they liked it in the beginning, but then it got to a certain point where they didn't want to do it anymore, and I said, okay, I'm not one of those kind of parents, but I couldn't help but think, boy, Title IX would be really nice, if they know how to hit a golf ball in school, and they can, but it didn't happen. But they're very happy now, and they're off in college, and I love them dearly. And if you're worrying, don't worry, they look like their mother. But the other thing is, the first opportunity about Lyman Orchards is that you went down there and it's like an hour drive for you, if I'm not mistaken, and you didn't even, had no idea, and then just this teaching bug just bit you, and you haven't looked back.
yeah. And I mean, I was so nervous because being from Western Mass, I don't know if you're familiar with the Western Mass area outside of Springfield. It's pretty small, the community.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've probably worked at maybe 10 places, and I've just exhausted all my options here. I mean, I've carried every position. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I saw that pop up, and I know that I love teaching. And so I was worried because no one knew me down there. I'm like, no one knows me. I mean, from Western Mass, people were following me since I was a kid. But I mean, whatever. I didn't care. I had to give it a try, give it a shot. I love the facility. Something that you would see down south. I was like, wow, this place is beautiful. Right. I mean, wow. I mean, so yeah, it was fun. I grew with the program, and the women would just keep coming back. What do we do next, Marissa? What's next? Like, okay, you want more? So I created another class, and eventually word just kept going around, and there really aren't many facilities around that have female professionals or a women's program at all. I mean, we have people, it's great, traveling from Stratford or Milford, traveling from my area, Long Meadow. It's like they'll travel because there's nothing around their area, and they hear good things. So I'm proud. I'm proud of the program.
You've done great work. You continue to, and you've established a huge name. Marissa Kulig Crow, what motivates you?
My students.
That was a quick answer.
They do. That's why I go to work. I mean, they light the fire under me. Yeah, my students.
And you could see their improvement. You could see them getting happier. You see their passion of the sport growing.
That's most rewarding. And I think that's why, I've stuck with it. The hour plus drive, I just don't have anything like that here in Massachusetts. So it's worth it. It's so worth it. And I mean, it just continues to grow. And I mean, how could I leave that?
Right. Well, you catch up on your books, audio books and podcasts, and I guess that's the other way to look at it.
Sirius XM is awesome.
Yeah. How do you measure success?
How do I measure success? By numbers. I mean, I know my numbers. How many students have graduated? How many students have taken classes? Each year, it's just grown. I don't have the final tally yet, but I think it's between 1,500 and 1,600 this year. And I remember my third or fourth year there, I had maybe 350 ladies, and I would go down to a teaching conference down in Virginia, and they were like, wow, 350 women. What are you doing there? And I would never have thought 7 years later that 1,500 ladies. It's remarkable. I would love to hit 2,000. That's my goal. 2,000. And it's not even a full season. It's March to October.
Exactly right. Marissa, thank you so much for your time. This was so great. I've known you for a long time from afar, and I asked you to come on, and you accepted, and this has been wonderful. When I come back up in the spring, I'm going to attend one of the yoga classes on number 11.
Please.
Yeah. I took a nice
I'll send you some class recordings. You can try some of the stretches.
Very cool. Thank you again.
Thank you for having
Have a
me.
great off season. It was wonderful, and I look forward to seeing you in the spring. You be
Same
well.
here.
Thanks
You
again.
too. Take care.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciplined Conversations.